Today, we're going to explore the fiercely protected origin story of one of the most famous, most scrutinized men on planet Earth, Cristiano Ronaldo. But we aren't just looking at the trophies or the goals today. We're going to completely deconstruct the myth, peel back the layers of his multi-million-dollar PR machine, and look at the raw, unfiltered history that actually created this global icon. But you know, before we even get into where Cristiano Ronaldo actually came from, we gotta talk about the absolute fortress built around him today. And honestly, this was perfectly illustrated when literally just one single word in a book sparked an international outrage. When a sports journalist included a locker room rumor about a nickname Ronaldo allegedly used for Lionel Messi, that one word caused an absolute hurricane in the press. It wasn't just the media either, it was Ronaldo's own inner circle going to war to control the narrative. So when the author later reached out to Ronaldo's super agent, Jorge Mendes, to collaborate on a new biography, which, by the way, is the main source material for our explainer today, he was hit with this incredibly intense threat. I'm going to help you, but don't screw with me. Mendes demanded absolute control. He wanted to make absolutely sure the image of Ronaldo presented to the world was the exact pristine image his agency had spent years carefully curating. It just proves how desperately his inner circle tries to dictate his story. This kind of extreme PR control begs a pretty crucial question, right? What exactly are they trying so hard to protect? Or maybe, what are they trying to hide? Why does a man who has already conquered the sporting world need such a massive shield? Section 1. The Battle for Truth. So, to answer that, we first have to understand the high-stakes game of modern sports journalism. As you can see here, sports journalists are constantly navigating two totally different worlds. Microphone on, you get those perfectly polished, PR-approved, focus grouped statements. You see the indestructible superstar. But microphone off, that's a whole different story. It's unfiltered dressing room realities, fierce rivalries, and deeply human insecurities. And we, the public, are pretty much only ever sold the microphone on version, because that's what keeps the sponsors happy and the legend intact. But when that locker room rumor leaked, the mask kind of slipped. Ronaldo actually weaponized his 100 million Facebook followers to drop this exact quote, literally threatening legal action over a simple rumor. Think about that for a second. A guy of his stature deploying legal threats over a piece of gossip published 11 months prior? It's wild. It really shows a deep underlying fear of showing any vulnerability or weakness. He simply cannot afford a crock in the armor. Which brings us to Section 2, the Island of Emigrants. To truly understand why he needs to project this indestructible image, we've got to travel away from the glitz of Madrid and Dubai and go back to the island of Madeira. Now, Madeira isn't just a picturesque holiday destination. It's an isolated volcanic crossroads with a really complex history of colonization and emigration. After the Portuguese Empire dissolved in 1975, it was kind of left as a distant cousin to the mainland. For centuries, this island has basically functioned as a springboard for people desperate to leave and conquer other worlds. When you live on a tiny rocky island in the middle of the Atlantic, you are born staring at the horizon. But here's the grim reality the tourism boards definitely don't want you to see. Behind the golden beaches and luxury hotels, Madeira is floating on a sea of stark economic inequality. An elite class controls a vast amount of the wealth, making up just 10% of the population. Meanwhile, over 28,000 citizens have to rely on subsidized food, and the unofficial poverty rate sits around 20%. This is the harsh environment Cristiano Ronaldo was born into. Section 3. A mother's harrowing survival. Now, what's really interesting here is how this frames the generational trauma Ronaldo inherited. And it all starts with his mother, Dolores. Dolores' early life wasn't just poor. It was defined by extreme neglect and abuse. Her mother dies when she's only 5. Then she's sent to an orphanage where she gets routinely beaten by nuns. When she finally goes back home, her stepmother is so incredibly abusive, she actually ties a young Dolores to the legs of a table so she couldn't run away. By age 13, she's pulled out of school entirely and forced to wake up at 5:30 in the morning to make wicker baskets. I mean, she was pushed into a brutal survival mindset from the time she was just a small child. Fast forward a bit. Dolores is married, working herself to the bone to feed 3 kids. Her environment was so desperately poor that when she accidentally fell pregnant with her 4th child, it was an absolute crisis. She actually begged a doctor for an abortion, and when he refused, she resorted to a desperate home remedy. She drank boiled black beer and ran until she nearly fainted, trying to end the pregnancy. Obviously, it didn't work, and that 4th child would eventually be named Cristiano. Section 4. The Ghost of War. But Dolores wasn't the only parent battling deep psychological scars. Ronaldo's father, Dinis, was drafted into the Portuguese army to fight in Africa. And as you can see, the Dinis before the war was full of life, funny and respected. But the man who returned, he was completely different. He was severely traumatized by the psychological horrors of war. He became a grayer version of himself, checking out a family life almost entirely and drowning his heavy PTSD in cheap local alcohol. Section 5. Escaping Quinta do Falcao. Let's step into the physical reality of the neighborhood where this broken family actually lived. It was a seriously grim existence. We're talking asbestos roofs that literally let the rain pour right in. 5 kids sleeping cramped into a single room. They were hand-me-down clothes, even sharing underwear because they couldn't afford their own. And they were surviving mostly on bread and simple soup. The hum of poverty was just constant and deafening. So the crucial point here is that Ronaldo lacked a traditional father figure. Dinis was so detached that he actually arrived 30 minutes late to Cristiano's own baptism, just because he was busy at a local amateur football match. Young Cristiano had to take on a provider role incredibly early, idolizing a damaged man who prioritized local football over his own family milestones. And this environment created the ultimate psychological pressure cooker. For a boy who had absolutely nothing but a ball in the street, football wasn't just a game, it was a lifeline. The legendary coach, Arrigo Sacchi, once said, "There's no art without obsession." And honestly, this explains everything. You see, his relentless, almost fanatical work ethic on the pitch isn't just about winning trophies. It's a frantic, lifelong escape from the poverty and the deep trauma of his past. So, I'll leave you with this. If you knew your success was the only thing shielding your family from generational poverty, could you ever afford to stop being the absolute best? When you peel back that slick PR machine and the millions of dollars, we're really left wondering if the real Cristiano Ronaldo is simply a man who is utterly terrified of going back to where he started. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.